Do CAs ever escape the finance box? I feel like I escaped the finance box right from the get-go. Not really. People see CAs as just accountants, but I know many who have gone into strategy, tech, and even creative fields. How did you move beyond being just a CA? And how do you convince others that you are more than just the numbers person in the room? So in my current role at Alto Growth, where I help decision makers get financial clarity, a lot of the time, because the name accountant is in the word chartered accountant, you can be perceived as the accountant, and it's up to you to really, the financial acumen is just a foundation, and it's maybe not necessarily always the starting point. I think the art of persuasion is in bringing people along for the journey, and really making them feel comfortable. We're primal beings, so we're driven by fear and uncertainty. And when you're chatting to someone and engaging with someone, if you can speak to that core fear and fear and uncertainty, and say, communicate in a way that gives them reassurance, that gives them confidence that you can do the job, that gives them confidence that you're with them for the journey, then the next step, I think, is leadership. Because once you've convinced people, it's about convincing them to go in the direction that you think that we should go. And then the numbers are there to back it up. And I think the biggest mistake that I made was, you're classically trained quite technically, in terms of accounting standards and all of that. And that doesn't matter to a lot of people in the real world. It's very, very important, but it was almost like it was the cherry on top of convincing people, and bringing them along for the journey. If you could redo your career, what would you do differently? It's a tough one. If you could go back in time and redo your career from the moment you qualified, would you do anything differently? Or would you take the same path? Honestly, I was fortunate early on to realize, again, I think the common theme very generally for me was to build and create. So that has stayed the same from then to now. And I wouldn't do anything, obviously in hindsight is 2020, but I wouldn't do anything differently, in the sense that I would pursue skills that speak to and that allow me to do that. I think what I would do differently in that vein is I would probably take mentorship a lot more seriously. I think you need a lot of confidence to go to someone and say, I don't know, I've got big ambitions. I don't know what to do. I need help. I realize I need help. And those people are more often than not more than willing to help you out. What's the hardest part about running a business as a CA? I always hear that CAs make great entrepreneurs because we understand the business. But what was the hardest thing about running your own business that your CA training didn't prepare you for? That's a tough one. That's a very, very good question. I think, so if I reflect back on my academic journey, like lots and lots of technical knowledge, not specifically geared to running a business, absolutely helps. However, I think even again, reflecting on your articles journey is, although you might get exposure to various different businesses, various different functions, what you don't get exposure to is the interdisciplinary or the cross-functional knowledge. So I'll give you an example. In order to run a business, you need, off the top of my head, you need sales, you need marketing, you need some sort of delivery element, and you need the back office and admin support. So you know a lot about those functions. For example, having been in audit, I knew how those functions worked. But to come up with the positioning for Alto Growth that says, when I do my sales pitch for Alto Growth and I say, I'll give you an example. A lot of the time, a senior leader in a business will say these words. They'll say, I'm flying blind. And how do you then come up with a message that helps them to connect? So I actually say to people now, I'm flying blind as part of my, or are you flying blind as part of my, call it, marketing approach. Then in the sales, that whole entire process of closing a deal and drafting contracts and all of that kind of thing also is something that you may not necessarily have gotten exposure to in articles. And that's also a reason why I wanted to get out of audit. I wanted that interdisciplinary knowledge. I wanted cross-functional. I want to be able to speak to each of the disciplines, sales, marketing, and how do we scale the business from there, finance, operations, and that. Hey Adrian, I've been in the industry for a while now, and I'm starting to feel like I want more control over my time and income. I want to move into consulting, but I have no idea where to start. Also, really great question. What's the first step you'd recommend for a CA who wants to start consulting, but has only ever worked in a corporate structure? I think the first thing I would say is that realize the difference between the experience that you have now and the experience that you need to run your own business, albeit as part of a consulting, which will be probably within your existing skill set. And then the second thing I think there is, know what you're getting yourself into. Remember that time isn't scalable. If you're going to start consulting, your job gives you a fixed paycheck. And that paycheck is nice because if your capacity dips, you're working at 80% capacity, you're still going to get paid the same. If you're working at 120% capacity, you're still going to get the same. In consulting, that's obviously different. But in consulting, when you stop working, potentially you stop earning, and you need to account for that. And that brings me to my second point. I think scope is so important. And what happened to me when I started Alter Growth is because we're trying to productize the business, but there was also a consulting element to it. And in doing some, money for time transactional business, scope creep is a real thing. So if I charged out 10 hours and I took an extra 2 hours because it's always, hey, can you do this? Can you look at this? Can you, do a bit extra? That extra 2 hours is the 2 hours in lost time that you don't earn for, especially if you don't charge for it. But it's also the opportunity cost of the 2 hours that you could have charged someone else. And then you're tired and you're earning a lot less than you potentially could. So I would say the next thing is define scope. Scope creep is an absolute killer. And I actually got to a point where I was itemizing my service offering and saying, this is what I will do for you. And it's also a good expectations management tool. So if I can give you a last golden nugget, if you are a CA that's just qualified or about to qualify and you want to get into entrepreneurship, I would leave you with one, maybe two pieces of advice. And I think that is, don't go it alone. That's the first piece of advice. The second piece of advice is get early validation feedback from a lot of different people. So that might be a mentor, but most importantly, your market. So if you have got a prototype or if you've got something to sell that you can take to customers and get some sort of indication of interest, do that. Because if they are bashing your door down for that product, what that will mean is that you've got validation on your idea. And then from there, you can plan on how to scale that and how to improve that. And you won't find yourself in a position a year down the line where you might have a product that you've built, you haven't tested with customers. It sounds obvious, but I promise you 90% of people don't do it. And you've done that over a year and then no one wants to buy your product.